Hey guys, thank you very much for joining another video from nzpocketguide.com. This video is for you to say thank you for reaching 20,000 subscribers. I can't believe so many of you guys are trusting us for your travel tips around New Zealand. It's awesome. So to say thank you, we decided to talk about the 10 things we love the most about New Zealand, our new home, and we take you on a hike alongside this video, so check it out. Alright guys, just before we get started, a little bit of context. My name is Robin, this is Laura. Laura was born and lived for quite a while in the UK, and she's now a Kiwi from New Zealand. And I lived in France, USA, Australia, Canada and multiple other countries. So we do have a little bit of background of why we do love New Zealand. We've both been here for, well, I've been here for about 10 years, Laura's been here for about 8. So let's get started with the first thing we love the most about New Zealand.
Okay, so number one on our list is the great outdoors. As you can see right now, there's some pretty amazing wilderness sort of landscapes around New Zealand, ranging from everything from forest to mountains, volcanoes, beautiful beaches, lakes, rivers and everything else in between. New Zealand seems to have it all. So
yeah, the endless exploration in New Zealand, endless exploration.
Absolutely, and there's a million different ways to experience the outdoors, and if you check out other video how to experience the great outdoors in New Zealand, you'll see all that good stuff.
Yes, we did a challenge which was called New Zealand's Biggest Gap Year, in which we had to tackle 365 activities all around New Zealand in only 365 days. And guess what? There is still so much more to do in New Zealand. All right, moving on, the second things we love the most about New Zealand is the people, the community.
Yeah, so you'll find lots of different types of communities in New Zealand. You have a lot of really small towns and villages, and in those sort of places it really has a good community spirit where everyone seems to know everyone. Yeah. They have sort of events like farmers markets and this sort of thing, which is always a really cool experience, whether you live here or are visiting. But on the other side of that, there's also some really big cities in New Zealand like Auckland, Christchurch and Wellington, which has a whole variety of cultures and people living there. And on that side of things, you sort of get to sort of experience different cultures and yeah, if you're an expat and you prefer to be, you know, with people from your own country, you're bound to find groups like that. But if you're also wanting to sort of, you know, when you live abroad, you want to sort of experience people from a variety of countries, and you can definitely do that as well in the larger cities around New Zealand. So you get to sort of, depending on where you live in the country, you get to have both experiences. Yeah, experiencing the New Zealand melting pot is just fantastic. All right, moving on to point number 3 on this list. I want to talk about the healthcare system. I know it's a bit silly. Oh, that was a
big wood pigeon, or kereru in Maori.
All right, so I want to talk about the healthcare system. It's not really a fun stuff to talk about, and it's weird things to love, but I tend to break bones and stuff like that quite regularly. Actually, you can see on one episode of New Zealand's Biggest Gap Year, I literally break a bone, take you guys to the hospital, show you how that works, and you know, get a cast. And then we finish, I think, for about the last month of that web series with me and my arm in the cast, which is kind of interesting. Anyway, the healthcare system in New Zealand is pretty strong. It's quite amazing how you know, everything gets sorted out quite quickly and it's not too expensive. So I do really like that about New Zealand, which is a perfect segue to the next point, which is that New Zealand is very safe.
Yeah, so New Zealand, in terms of crime and stuff, and compared to other countries, New Zealand definitely feels like a much sort of safer country to definitely live and travel in. You know, it's very common for people to not lock their doors in homes and stuff, you know, like it's
I don't think we did lock the door of the home today.
Yeah, so it's very common for people to be like so laid back and feel so safe that they don't even like, lock their doors to their homes. And otherwise, the crimes, you don't really hear of too many crazy stuff happening. Of course, there's bad eggs all over the world, so there definitely is some crimes that happen, but compared to elsewhere that we've lived around the world, it feels just feels much safer to be out and about. And even if you're alone and as a traveller travelling solo, when we both arrived in New Zealand, we were travelling solo. We didn't have any point where we felt unsafe or, we always felt like we were safe when we were travelling alone.
And what about earthquake, Laura? We receive a lot of questions about earthquake.
Yes, we do. So for earthquakes, it's kind of hyped in the media to be sort of afraid of them. But although we've felt a couple of really small ones, it's not something that, paralyzes us with fear that something, catastrophic,
I think.
is going to happen.
But I don't know, it's your language, not mine.
So it's not really like something that I think should stop anyone from visiting New Zealand or thinking about living in New Zealand. It's just one of those things that it's very rare when it has a negative effect on people, because there's literally earthquakes that happen every day in New Zealand, but most of them are not even felt.
All right, so another weird things to love about New Zealand, I think on my list, most of the points I have are the weird ones. So is the fact that it's quite easy to start a business. So first up, it made it really easy for us to start our business in New Zealand, and now we're running the largest travel guide to New Zealand, which is called NZPocketGuide.com. So that's the kind of cool. But what makes me love that and makes me want to put that on this list is that, there's a lot. This hike is not prepared for, it's not ready for like tall people. So what makes me put that in my list of things that I love about New Zealand is that there is a lot of people here that literally do what they love as a job. Because it's so easy to start a business, your passion can become your job really easily. And therefore, that means that you meet so many people that truly, genuinely love what they do. And that's quite rare to find that around the world. Most of the time, a job is a means to an end. But in New Zealand, a lot of time, it's a passion turned into a job. And that's quite amazing. And that means that, some of the cooks are amazing. The food's not, amazing, but some of the cooks are fantastic. And, some of the time when you meet some people which are running like mountain biking tours around New Zealand, they love what they do. They love their place to the world and all that. So I really genuinely love that about New Zealand. And another thing that we do really like about New Zealand is that, we haven't really experienced any form of racism.
Yeah, so New Zealand's it's a very welcoming country, and as we explained in our sort of people and community point, that it is a melting pot, so there's loads of different cultures that live here, and even the sort of two main sort of cultures that live here are the Maori and sort of the New Zealanders, the Pakeha, they actually call them in New Zealand, which is like white New Zealanders, but they've all,
They're English, you can say it, they're English.
Basically like have European heritage. Everyone sort of, everyone lives in communities together, and you don't experience anyone really being, there might be the odd person that has some controversial views, but most people are like, very accepting of different cultures and usually interested in different cultures as well. So that's quite refreshing compared to some other places that we've been to around the world.
Another divisive thing that we love the absence of in New Zealand is politics. So politics is obviously present in New Zealand. There are politicians and there is government and all that, but politics is not divisive here. That means that if you have certain views, you're not going to be put into one selected box and that is it. There are many countries around the world where politics defines kind of you and defines your circle of friends, and I don't find that in New Zealand. Many of our friends have different political views than we have, and it's just kind of like, we basically have friendship all across the spectrum, which is quite amazing to find in a country, as westernized as New Zealand. So the fact that politics doesn't have too much of an impact on everyday life and is not too omnipresent in the media is quite wonderful. We're filming this video just literally days away from an election, and yet it's still not something which is on everybody's lips, and it's just talked about absolutely all the time. So I find that incredibly refreshing. And on top of that, when you watch debates, you know, in New Zealand, it's mostly about policies and the implementation rather than just kind of, you know, a show and just some, you know, shouting matches. So I find that really cool about New Zealand. Next up on our list.
Next up, we have that New Zealand is LGBTQ friendly. So yeah, New Zealand, again, it relates to people being quite accepting of different lifestyles and stuff. So again, we feel that it's quite friendly to the lesbian and gay community as well. People are just, yeah, really accepting here. So there's no sort of negative vibes, you know, if you're not with groups that, you know, feel like, you know, they're a bit negative about people, and yeah.
No, you can truly be who you are, and same-sex marriage in New Zealand has been, you know, legal for quite a long time now, so it's very much widely accepted. Okay, and the last point on our list, point number 10. What we really love about New Zealand as well is that it's so easy to travel into. So obviously we're a little bit biased. We are the team that writes the New Zealand's largest travel guide, which is called NZPocketGuide.com. So obviously traveling is a big part of our life, and it's something that we love a lot. So actually that's not the last point. That's the 9 point. I keep on missing the last point all the time. Anyway, so we love the fact that it's so easy to travel in. And yeah, you can, if you want to travel in the camper van, you can travel in the camper van, car, you can fly around if you want to, but you're going to miss out a lot, so you may want to travel by road. There is so many different options, from luxury to families to budget, and yeah, we do have travel guide for all those kind of travel style on nzpocketguide.com. So easy to travel into. We just love that about New Zealand.
Absolutely.
Last point now, sorry, point number 10. What is the last thing we love about New Zealand?
The last thing that we love is that it's quite an eco-friendly country. Now for us, we really felt like our passion for protecting the environment and caring about nature really came when we arrived in New Zealand. Well, of course we cared before, but New Zealand is a place where it's very good at educating people about the environment and the impact humans can have on nature and ecosystems. So it's really a good place to get educated about that sort of thing, and also make you feel more passionate about nature, because you get to see, well, this sort of nature around you in quite a lot of places. So yeah, and there's also
and the trees are literally hitting you in the face, telling you, care for me.
Yeah, and also, yeah, there's loads of amazing, unique sort of birds and stuff. And you know, in other countries, or at least because I'm from the UK, in the UK, birds are kind of like, people are not really interested too much in birds. But when you get to New Zealand, you can feel like locals and stuff, they're really passionate about all the birds that live here, and they know all their names in both the English and the Maori name. And it's the same for the plants. When you're hiking with locals, they know what all the plants are. So it's really cool to see other people really passionate about that sort of thing, and it helps you sort of understand why it's so important.
All right, so that wraps up all those reasons why we love New Zealand, why we made New Zealand our new home, why we're so passionate by this country, why we spend so much of our day trying to get you to explore New Zealand and make the most out of this wonderful country. If you come to New Zealand just for one trip, you're going to want to make the most out of it. So stay as long as you can and do as much as you can. We have plenty of tips on the website for that. If you're Kiwi, we love your country. Thank you so much for welcoming us here in New Zealand. And yeah, we love to be part of your team now. And you can also check out nzpocketguide.com to discover some more stuff to do in your own backyard. In the meantime, if you did find this video useful, you can hit the like button. It's a great free way to say thank you for all our hard work. And if you want to subscribe for more travel tips, do so. We release videos every single week. In the meantime, bye-bye.
See you next week.
There's Tom T just right here.
Oh, yeah.
In the big plant on top of the tree that I don't know the name of.
Spider plant thing.
Yes, spider plant.
I don't know if it's called that.